Today on Locked On Red Wings, the NHL is considering changes to overtime, and Detroit is preparing for two big games in Sweden.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty says over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. On today's episode, guys, we're going to kind of just do a preview of, in general, preview of the two games, but pointedly, more specifically about the Ottawa game. But we'll lead off talking about some of the proposed rule changes we might be seeing to overtime at the NHL level. But before we can get to that, Scotty and all the listeners, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Scotty, without further ado, first of all, happy Wednesday. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? Not from the usual location. Got a headset on.
No.
You look like you're in the middle of the woods.
Well, it's really funny, actually. So I am out hunting. I won't say up north. I'm actually southwest of where I live in Metro Detroit. But I go walk the trail 10 minutes to my blind where I'm hunting out of. And then in front of me is all woods. But if I look directly behind me, there are these two massive houses on the hill. So you still, even when you get away from it, you can't get away from it fully.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, this is where I'll be for today's episode and tomorrow's episode. I'll be back home on Monday for those who are watching. And but nonetheless, I'll be watching the Red Wings on Thursday and Friday, so we still got that to look forward to. So we get into it, I suppose, then, Scotty. It was kind of tweeted out by a lot of different outlets. I saw it first from Frank Saravelli of Daily Faceoff, but I also saw Greg Wyshynski have an article about it on ESPN. The NHL kind of got together and they were talking about proposed rule changes to overtime, and two of the proposed rule changes were, one, making it so you can't either leave past the blue line or cross the center ice red line in overtime because, as we have stated and complained on multiple episodes, the doubling back of teams with possession have really slowed the pace of overtime down and made it a grind and very meticulous and tedious to watch. And the other one was a proposed shot clock where teams, once they enter the offensive zone, have got to get a shot off by, they didn't say a certain amount, but the idea of a shot clock in general. Scotty, I guess my first question is do you like either of these ideas? And if so, which one do you like more?
I think, man, it's a heck of a conversation. Obviously, overtime, like, something needs to change. I don't think there's too many hockey fans out there right now that watch overtime in its current format and think this is perfect. I think that we're all kind of in agreement that something needs to be tweaked or adjusted or changed. And I think there was a lot of really fascinating ideas thrown out there yesterday, and between those two, I think I would rather just like they called it the quote unquote like half court style, right? Where you can't cross the blue line or the red line, whichever they decide once you do cross it. And so that one was kind of interesting to me. I think there would be some like turnovers you'd have to like clarify, like if there's a turnover then you turn it over right back, like can you reset, or if you get possession of the puck on the other side of either the red or blue line, does that count? Like you don't get to go back and forward again. Like I think there's some stuff to iron out there, but I think the concept of that is there's something about adding a clock that just like bothers me, and I don't know what it is. But I don't know why, but there's something about just like, oh, like you have to get a shot off in 30 seconds. Like, what if there's genuinely like no opportunities? And like, I guess like basketball has the same thing, but basketball, there's 60 baskets scored a night. A goal in the NHL is hard to come by. So I don't really love the idea of the shot clock. I think I'd be more in favor of like again, they called it like the half court style of play there. But there was a few ideas that got thrown out there that I think are kind of worth bringing up too.
Yeah, and I mean, real quick on my thoughts on that. I love the idea of making it so you can't double back and skate back
Yeah,
out of the offensive zone or pass the red line. I mean, I went on a huge tear, I think, last season and even this season in one of the overtime games the Red Wings played against the Kraken or against the Islanders, maybe both. In both of those games, mentioned it, but I hate the style that overtime has turned into. And I understand it because it makes perfect sense that if you're an NHL team at 3-on-3, you understand how high variance that can be. You know, you shoot the puck, you miss the net, you turn over possession, you might not get possession back. The other team can come back down on an odd man rush and score immediately. So I get why teams are so careful with their possessions. But from a viewer perspective, it's horrible. It is awful watching these teams at 3-on-3 just hold on to the puck and hoard it without getting a shot off for like a minute and a half before finally getting the shot off or just bobbling it and missing it. 3-on-3 hockey is at its best when it first started. Like this is our 9th year of 3-on-3 overtime, which is
yeah.
crazy to me. It feels like just yesterday.
Wow, that is crazy that it's been that long. That's wild.
But I remember like yesterday, man, when it first started, it first began. I remember they tested it in like the All-Star game that one
Yeah,
year. And that's when they tested 3-on-3 hockey and weather fans would love it. And everyone loved how fast paced it was because it was just zip, zam, right back down the other end of the ice. People shooting the puck, scoring chances like crazy. It was a blast. And it started off that way too. But then as time went on, man, it just evolved into this. So I'm all for making it so you cross the blue line, you can't exit the zone without having taken a shot or having lost possession or something along those lines. Shot clock, not so on board with, but you know, I still think that would probably be an improvement over what they're doing now.
yeah,
uh, but I don't really think I like the idea of forcing a team to take a shot, but I do like the idea of forcing a team to stay in the offensive zone.
right.
What were some of those other ideas? I only saw those two, but you say you saw a
Yeah,
couple other ones.
well, the other ones were more like conceptual and just like reporters asked like the VP like openly, like, "Hey, what about this?" Like it was just kind of it was a little less formal, but there was a conversation around like extending overtime and just making it longer in hopes that that would like kind of fix the
Yeah,
issue. And then music to my ears, there was
eliminating
a
the shootout.
conversation about eliminating the shootout if they did, right? If they were to extend overtime and make it longer, it would be at the expense, we'll say, of the shootout, and that really got me giddy and excited because I notoriously, in all of my 2.5 years on this show, have adamantly hated the shootout and make it very vocal every time the Wings go into a shootout. But then when they win one, I always tweet out, "I've never said anything bad about the shootout ever."
Yeah,
So
I don't think.
it's but yeah, that was one where they were like, oh, like I think he was just straight up asked, like, is there is there conversations about extending overtime and then eliminating the shootout? And I again, like the extent of all of these conversations is unknown and probably like very ground level at the current moment. But the fact that he was even asked and brought up kind of got me excited.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have many people pushing back on eliminating the shootout. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
a consensus across the league among fan bases, players, and front office executives that the shootout is a waste of time.
To
And
determine a point, dude, like
yeah,
that's so crazy to me.
s-
Still,
so I would not be surprised if you saw that one get, just cut,
yeah,
yeah, altogether. Anyways, we take a quick break here, Scotty. But when we return, we can move on to talking about the Red Wings in Sweden, and they're going to be playing 2 games there. Some news
awesome.
coming out of practice here on Wednesday as we record this. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about GameTime. GameTime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All in prices show you your total up front so you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. And Scotty, I know that is a huge gripe for so many people who try to buy tickets. It kind of is very notorious with a certain ticketing service during the Taylor Swift Eras tour. But you won't get that with Game Time. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and of course, hockey. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% in savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast, segment 2 here on this Wednesday edition. Scotty, this is still so weird. I'm not used to not being at home. Trying to get
It's funny when
adjusted
you
to this on the fly.
the ad read you did, everything else was great. The first time you did the promo code, it you glitched out, and I was like, oh, I'll just repeat it after. But then you just said it a second time anyway, and it was clear that time, so we're good.
Where I'm censoring the promo code so I can hoard it for myself. Only I get to use
right.
I could try to save money on those tickets.
Yes.
Anyways, Scotty, 2 big games in Sweden. The boys have been in
Yeah.
Sweden for like a week now almost. That's not true. It's like 3 days, really. They got there Sunday because they're skating on the ice in Sweden less than 24 hours after their game on Saturday against Columbus this past Saturday. But I mean, when we talk about magnitude, like one, Sweden, this idea of this global series, I think, is so cool for the Detroit Red Wings and the NHL to grow the game in the first place. But also, these 2 games are so huge for the
Yeah.
Red Wings. Back-to-back divisional matchups. You know, I know Ottawa's 8th place in the Atlantic Division right now, but don't look past them because I keep saying it. Despite the fact that they're 8th place, they're a good hockey team. They just got a bad coach. And then Toronto Maple Leafs, they have no defense. Their goaltending stinks. But Austin Matthews will drop a hat trick on you just whenever he decides to turn it on. So these 2 games, I mean, they're going to have huge implications for, I mean, granted, it's still plenty of time left, still relatively early on in the season, but we're approaching American Thanksgiving, and we all know the statistic about being in the playoff spot at American Thanksgiving. And right now, currently, as we record this on Wednesday or Tuesday, right? No, Wednesday. It is Wednesday. The Red Wings are sitting 3rd in the Atlantic Division. So these 2 games are going to go a long way to kind of determining where you sit in the Atlantic Division standings come Thanksgiving.
Yeah, 100%. We'll talk about like the just the impact of the global series and playing in Sweden in a second, but it is really nice that it's not just like throwaway hockey games, right? And I know we're partly biased because like our team is involved, and obviously that just inherently we have more interest than, you know, 31 other fan bases, or I guess 30 other fan bases. But well, we play 2 different teams, but 29 other fan bases. But it really is one of those things where it's just you want to display for these big moments and these global series, and when you travel to other places and you have high publicity, high marketed games, you want to display your best hockey. And I don't think that the team should take it lightly. I don't think they are. I think they understand the magnitude of it. There's a lot of obviously Swedish connections on the roster, which certainly helps that. But it's very cool to have them be really meaningful impact hockey games, right? And you know, we say that, and then we'll lose both with a goal differential of minus 10, and we'll be like, all right, never mind. But like going into it, we're optimistic, and it's just a really cool. It's a real, again, we'll talk about kind of the impact of the global series in general, but as far as the games on the ice go, it's I think it's really really cool that they are high impact games.
I mean, I would go as far to argue, Scotty, that these 2 games mean more for the Red Wings than it does for both Toronto and Ottawa when you consider the fact that only Detroit has back-to-back divisional games, because both Toronto and Ottawa play one of their 2 games against the Minnesota Wild, which is a Western Conference team. So where the Red Wings have 4 division points on the line, the other 2 teams only have 2.
Yeah.
Like this is the Red Wings. The game against the Toronto Maple Leafs is a home game. The only home game against Toronto Maple Leafs the Red Wings are going to have this
Right.
year is in Sweden. So, I mean, this is huge for the Red Wings on so many different levels outside of just points. But I mean, outside of that, and we'll do a game preview for Toronto tomorrow after the game against the Ottawa Senators, and we'll preview the Ottawa Senators game here in a second in segment 3. But the impact of the Global Series games in general, I thinking about it, typically this is one of those things where I just like am kind of a grumpy old man where I don't typically like international games in sports because they come at super inconvenient times, and 2 o'clock on a weekday kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But it's not going to affect me here. I mean, I took 3 vacation days to go hunting, so I'll be able to watch them. I'll be okay this time around. But like, I really came around to the idea of the global series with Sweden and the NHL, and a little bit of bias going in there. I'm an NHL fan first, right? But because of the impact that Sweden has had on the Red Wings and the NHL, and vice versa, it makes perfect sense. When you send the NFL to London or you send the NFL to Germany, I think it's good that you attempt to grow the game, but there's not that connection there. They're trying to build that connection, but there's not that connection there. You send
Yeah.
the NHL to Sweden, you send the Red Wings to Sweden, there's already that pre-established connection. I mean, we just did our 5 greatest Swedish Red Wings of all time, but he goes past that too, right? Goes outside of Nick Lidstrom. I mean, it's the Sedin twins for the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, Borje Salming, we mentioned him the other day as an honorable mention because just what he meant for Swedish hockey players in the NHL. Like, he redefined what it meant to be a European hockey player to the NHL and so many executives because he brought a physical edge to him on top of being a really talented point producer. You know, it makes perfect sense sending the Red Wings and all these other NHL teams, these 3 other NHL teams, to Sweden to grow the game because Sweden loves the NHL. Like, this is the ultimate goal for all these players. Like, that's why it makes sense for MLB teams to send hypothetically send their teams like South American and Latin American countries to
Yeah.
play
Yeah. They had a
because that's
Mexican series game this year, which was cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
You go like a large core there. Like, so I really came around to the idea. And also it didn't hurt when I was seeing all these social media videos of like Lucas Raymond hosting the entire Red Wings family because he's
Yeah.
currently the only Swedish hockey player on the Red Wings, which is crazy to me to think. But like them talking about him hosting and teasing him, I liked it from that angle too because it showed how much camaraderie and team building that this global series was going to have. And yeah, I'm maybe reaching a little bit there, putting emphasis on something, a little bit more emphasis on something that probably needs it. But I did really like seeing those social media videos, and it dawned on me, like, I mean, they spend all this time together anyways, but like right now, they literally are all together 24/7.
Yeah, man. I agree with everything you said. I think the impact of just like being able to send your sport elsewhere is just like so cool. And obviously, like hockey is very prevalent in Sweden, but the NHL is obviously different. So I think it's really really cool to be able to do games like this, and we see it in other sports and have for a while, right? Like we just talked about the MLB. Like obviously the NFL's been going to Europe for a while now. The basketball, as you mentioned, like you got to find where your game is thriving, and like China is a massive, like the NBA has been wildly successful in China, and so they're starting to play like games there. Like it's really cool to be able to share, I guess, like your sport and your league, I guess I should say, not sport, with other countries. And like you said, it's everybody's goal there, when you're growing up is to make the league. And so I think the impact is awesome. I think the impact, as you said, with the Red Wings is really cool just because of how many Swedish connections the Red Wings have had over the years. So sending the Wings specifically, I think, is a really smart move by the NHL. Obviously, my bias included into that statement, but so be it. I think, like, I'm really excited. I'm really really excited not only to watch these games just because they're meaningful hockey games, and we'll preview Ottawa here in a second, but I think I'm just really excited to be like on a global stage. Like that's
Yeah.
just super cool for our team to be, picked as to be showcased to in this global series is very cool.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's get to that preview unless you have anything else to add here after these words from FanDuel. As soon as I find, there it is. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Red Wings play Ottawa tonight by the time people are listening to this, or guess this afternoon, 2 o'clock. And last time these two teams met, the Red Wings came out on top. It was what we said, a very early litmus test, very early statement win for the team. They had a lot to prove in defeating the demons or the Ottawa Senators that haunted them last season, and they did. Last season, we've talked about it a lot. They effectively ended the Red Wings' playoff hopes and reconfirmed to Yzerman that he had to sell at the deadline. Well, now you're playing them for the second time. You're playing them on a global stage. You're playing them on national television at 2 o'clock. This is, despite the fact that they're eighth in the division, man, you cannot underestimate the Ottawa Senators because they were a good hockey team.
Correct. And like, even, like, poking fun and joking aside, just like the tale as old as time, right? It's death, taxes, and the Ottawa Senators getting off to the slowest start you've ever seen. Like, that's just what they do over there. And again, like, that's not even like an attempt of shade. It's just like objective truth of the last several years straight. And I do still think they're a good hockey team. I do still think they're going to play their way into playoff contention, at least like being in the conversation in the second half of the year. I still get anxious when I see them on the calendar because of what happened last year. But because you're playing them a lot early, that can only benefit you just based on track record. So continue to take advantage. I don't know if like November 16th is quote unquote like early. I don't know if that still quantifies as like the slow start for Ottawa, or if that's kind of like, maybe they start the uptick around now. But
Usually start
man,
the uptick around now, if I'm recalling correctly.
yeah, it's usually, I feel like, around American Thanksgiving is when they usually turn it on. So, yeah, man, this is obviously a big game for a lot of reasons off the ice, but it's just as big of a game on the ice as well. And the Wings' success against them, like earlier on in the year, came from things that have plateaued or just straight up like nose dove like sense, right? Like we when we played Ottawa the first time, there was a lot of like special team success. Okay, well, the special teams has I don't want to say plummeted. I'm not trying to be like sky is falling, but like it's gone down mightily since like the last time we played them. And it's obviously a high emotion game already, just because of all the things that have happened between these two organizations and fan bases and players, and DeBrincat, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. But um, add the global scale on top of that. It should be a heck of a hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hockey team that is they're hard to get a grip on, right? Like I say that on paper they should be a really good hockey team, yet they always get out to these slow starts, as you just pointed out as well. But I mean, at the same time, Timmy Stutzla with the Ottawa Senators has 17 points in 13 games played. Claude
Yeah.
Giroux has 15 and 13. Brady Kachuk's got 12 and 13. They've gotten above average goaltending from Jonas Korpisalo. I'm pretty sure that's their goalie. Let me just double check. Yeah, Jonas Korpisalo has a 907 save percentage, which doesn't sound like above average, but like I think last year 908 was the league average, and I think it's not that much better this year. So at the very worst, it's league average goaltending, something the Red Wings haven't gotten. There, what's wild though is when you sort it by Corsi for percentage, Scotty, the Ottawa Senators are ahead of the Red Wings, and the Red Wings are like 26th in the league. But at expected goals for percentage, which is the quality of the shot attempt at 5-on-5, the Red Wings are ranked at 19th, but the Ottawa Senators are ranked 29th. So the Ottawa Senators are going to do a better job at creating shot attempts and suppressing shot attempts. but the Red Wings are going to do a better job at creating quality shot attempts. Now, granted, that's just via the stats, and that's throughout the whole season. Doesn't really express how they're playing recently in the last 10. But it's supported as well too, Scotty, by the fact that their power play and the Red Wings power play neck and neck in the league. I believe the Ottawa Senators power play
It's
is
10th versus 12th.
10th versus 12th, and the penalty kill for the Ottawa Senators, though, is their big weak point, 24th in the league right now. Where the Red Wings are ranked 16th. So this is a very beatable hockey game or winnable hockey game for the Detroit Red Wings, rather. It's just the team's got to show up and play, and that's been the biggest thing all season is the Red Wings' inconsistency. Which Red Wings
Right.
team are we going to see, right?
For sure. And you bring up the goaltending, like Korpisalo has a sub 900 save percentage, and obviously we've had our gripes with Husso this year, but in net in as a whole, everybody who has stepped foot, in between the pipes for Ottawa this season, they rank 29th in save percentage as a team this year. Like you have an opportunity to score goals, and again, like that's a whole season thing, and they notoriously get out to these slow starts, but we will see. I think another thing I want to bring up is my favorite stat, which is face-off percentage. The Sens are top 5 in the league in face-off percentage. They're 4th in the NHL as a team in the circle, and the Wings are 20th. They're below 50% success rate. So I'm going to keep pounding that drum until it gets fixed, because I think
Yeah.
that it's a really underrated aspect as to why the Wings struggle sometimes.
It's really funny you brought up the team save percentage for the Ottawa Senators, and that's right after I say like Jonas Korpisalo has been pretty good. But the reason why their accumulative save percentage is so bad is because Anton Forsberg, who's played 5
Yeah.
games with the Sens, has a save percentage of 8.33.
Yeah.
We think our goaltending woes are bad. I mean, not that we have at least they have a starter, right? Like Korpisalo has been good for them as their starter, but their backup situation's rough right now. Speaking of backup situations, Scotty, Ville Husso is out for the Global Series because he had a baby. Good for him.
Yes.
He had to fly back despite the fact that I think he's Finnish. He had to fly all the way back to the States because that's where his wife was at the time of the birth. So he's out, which means we are likely going to see Alex Lyon in one of these 2 games. It sounds like Reimer's in net for this game on Thursday against the Ottawa Senators. But Lalone did say that it'll likely be Alex Lyon tomorrow, or I'm sorry, Friday, unless James Reimer has a really good game and is good to go. But I mean, we talked about how will we see Alex Lyon during the Global Series? Looks like probably just didn't get it the way we thought we would get it.
Yeah, right. None of it was performance or injury or anything based, which I guess I'm glad it's not injury based. But yeah, got to remember these dudes are people, and stuff bigger than hockey. So congratulations to Husso. That's obviously awesome. And yeah, it's it creates an opportunity for Lyon to finally get some playing time, which I don't think anyone is going to be too upset about either. So we'll see how it goes. I do think Reimer should get the first game, and yeah, I think he will. So we'll see. I think with Reimer, a lot of people are kind of, I don't want to say waiting for, but I think that people are like Reimer's at 926 save percentage. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
I feel like people are like, okay, like this, like he's not just gonna hold on like to a 926 the entire season. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we're waiting for like maybe a 4 or 5 goal game against, and hopefully it's not this one.
Don't do it, Bo. my dad's dog is giving me the evil eye right now. He wants to go outside, so he might start barking at me here in a second.
Well, we're almost done. So
what's up, dude? Yeah, there he goes. He
there
wants to
you
go
go.
outside. Well, give me a second, Bo. I'll let you out in a second. So, anyways, my finishing thoughts on the Ottawa Senators again comes down to what. Oh, also before we get to that, Jake Wallman left practice on Wednesday because and I heard this from Jennifer Morris, who's in Sweden, one of our listeners. She's in Sweden. She DM'd me because Max Boltman had reported that Wallman left the ice during practice, and she told me that he took a hit from Klim Kostin in practice, and that's why he left a little bit early during corner drills or little 3-on-3s in the corner. So We'll wait to see what Derek Lyon has to say, if that was officially the reason or not. But either way, Jake Wellman left practice, looked a little bit under the weather. Is not quite the right word, a little shaken up.
Shaken up, sure.
So hopefully he can play. That's a huge loss. I don't know what our defensive core looks like if he can't play. Not so great, worse than it already does at times. But I guess, again, my final thoughts on this game, these are two teams that metrically and statistically are very similar, with the sole exception being the Red Wings being a better penalty kill team than the Ottawa Senators. So just because they're eighth in the division doesn't mean you should go in that game taking them lightly. You should never take any game lightly as a fan or as a player. But the Red Wings have got to show up on time. And you know what? With as many days of rest as they got, I have faith that they will take care of business.
I hope so. Yeah, like I don't. Ottawa's a team where when you play them, I throw out the window like record and like slow start and all that, and it's just like you got to show up and play, man. It's going to be a physical, chippy game. Like I said, on a big scale, certainly adds to that as well. Should be a fun hockey game. I hope it is. But yeah, you absolutely correct.
So, oops, I hit the space bar.
Unbelievable.
I don't know if you want to edit that out or not. That's up to you.
I'm not.
So when it comes to the three keys to the game, Scotty, what are they?
Well, I think starting on time, like it's just so easy, but like it's something that they don't do every game. Like it's just it's such a, I guess, like low hanging fruit, but like it's so easy to just be like, well, yeah, like they never do this, so like yeah, I'm gonna keep going with that. Um, so that, I guess, that's gonna be one. I think, I mean, goaltending. Like I feel like we have the same three every time. I do think because it's Ottawa, you can throw in like physicality is going to be a thing. You can't get bullied. And look, like they have a win against Ottawa this year. Like that, we know that they can overcome it now, but that's something that's always going to be prevalent when you play the Sens too.
Yeah, I mean, not to sound cliche also, but for me, a big one is, you got to start on time, which we've been harping on the last couple of games. And they did start on time against Columbus, but doing it once isn't enough. Like, especially against Ottawa, who's given you fits the last couple of years. Like, the Red Wings have got to start on time in this game, and that means coming out with fast, coming out physical, and capitalizing on your early chances. I know it's a lot to ask in one key, but that's what it means to start on time. You can't keep getting to deficits, and they didn't do this against Columbus, and it worked out. It gave them wiggle room to go through their woes throughout the game, but you can't start off playing from behind, because that is not a recipe to succeed.
Right.
Other thing, I mean, we know the Red Wings power play is kind of going through some struggles right now, but the penalty kill of the Ottawa Senators is ranked 24th right now in the league. Got to capitalize on the power play. Got to capitalize on the power
Yeah.
play. So I think those are two major keys right there. And then I guess, what was your one main key again? The one that you were really, I forgot.
Well, the three that I just mentioned were the goaltending, physicality, and like again, don't get off to a slow start, which is just like super easy.
There you go. There's 5 whole keys for the 3 keys of the game from
Bang.
Scotty and I. We're just that good. We can give you multiple. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But anyways, we'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Do you have any final thoughts, Scotty?
We ball.
We ball. New episode tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.